We'll get the meeting started then at 2 minutes after 7. Sorry for the delay. I'd ask people to mute their microphones if they're not actively speaking or trying to communicate with us so we don't get feedback and TV video noises. Nicole, if you can control that, that would be appreciated as well.
No problem.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. It's a meeting of the Town of Norton Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm Tom Noel, the chair. We have with us tonight Mr. Jim Tenore, Mr. Alan Booley, who along with me will be the 3 voting members tonight. And we also have alternate member, Mr. Lucas.
Tom, you're muted again.
Thank you. Not sure how that happened. Maybe Nicole muted us all. I don't know. Sorry about that. Jim, how long had I been muted for? Do you guess?
We started with the alternate. You named Luke as the alternate.
Okay, I think I don't know what I said after that. It wasn't important, so I won't try to repeat it. All right, let's go forward. We have a busy agenda tonight. I'm going to start off by explaining a couple things as to procedure and how we're going to proceed due to some issues that have come up. If there is anybody here for the matter scheduled for 7:25, which is property address 0 Tipping Place, applicant owner, well, it's attorney Peter Clark, Howard James F. trustee. Again, 0 Tipping Place for 7:25. We've determined that we are going to, at the appropriate time, open that only to go over a thing or two and then continue it to our next meeting date. So if anybody is here interested in that matter, we're not going to discuss it substantively tonight. And Nicole, you'll remind me to take it up at the appropriate time and to do that. I just wanted to alert people, abutters or interested parties, if anyone's tuning in for that. We won't be discussing it substantively tonight. The other matter that I wanted to point out is the matter slated for 7:35 p.m. Property address is 0 Knollwood Street. Again, that's 0 Knollwood at 7:35. For that matter, we are going to open that hearing tonight only briefly to recite some of the history, but there has been a public records request made by Butter, and under the Massachusetts open meeting laws and Freedom of Information Act laws, we have to, because some of the records concerning that matter originated in, I think, 2007 and 2008, and involved an executive session of the zoning board, at least one executive session. There are some records that have not been publicly released yet. We are going to have to go into executive session tonight, meaning only the board members and Nicole Salvo in executive session at the end of the meeting. Therefore, we are going to take that up substantively again at our next scheduled meeting in April. Nicole, what is the date of our next meeting? April
14th, I believe, Tom.
Thank you. Which is 3 weeks from tonight. Yes, thank you. So again, 0 Knollwood Street we'll talk about briefly, but then we're going to have to go into executive session, purpose of which is going to be whether or not we release formerly privileged materials in the file because an abutter has requested them. Obviously, we would have to do that before proceeding with that application to finality. So because we have such a long agenda tonight, we're going to go into executive session on that right at the end of the meeting, and that will be it. We won't be returning to public session this evening. So we have to do that at the end because of this handy-dandy method of holding remote hearings by Zoom. With that, I just wanted to provide notice to anybody hanging around for those two things.
Just so you know, there is a gentleman with his hand up, and I believe he's the one who made the records request. I'm not sure if you want to take comment right now, but I'm just letting you know his hand is raised.
We can't do that yet because it's not the appointed time. assuming that's for Norwood Street at 7:35. After 7:35, we can open that and then take comment. So thank you, Nicole. If you can bring that up when we take that meeting, that would be great. We also have a continuation of 40B comprehensive permit application for 253 Mansfield Ave. That's slated to begin at 7:30. I can fairly estimate that's not going to get going till about 8 o'clock. We have a number of other things on the agenda first, but it is scheduled for 7:30 on the agenda. So as you can see, we have a full meeting. First item on the agenda for 7 p.m. is the application concerning 139 Newland Street. Anthony Tassellari, Jacobs, Carl, the estate of, maybe that's Carl Jacobs, is the applicant with us to present the application tonight, applicant or their representative.
Yes, sir.
Could you introduce yourself for the record?
So my name is Anthony Tassellari, and this is...
Hi, I'm Janie Jacobs. I'm Carl Jacobs' niece. I'm also trying to buy the property.
Okay, so it's your application, and I appreciate you identifying yourself. This is concerning a lot, 139 Newland Street. For the record, it is in the residential 80 zone, and it is also apparently a pre-existing non-conforming use, or at least that's what the record would indicate. We'll ask about that. We'll get into that at the appropriate time. The applicant wishes to demolish an existing dilapidated residential dwelling that is in need of removal and to construct a new residential family dwelling. And I believe also a new garage, if I remember it correctly, a detached garage.
Yes.
Yep.
No, detached.
detached.
Detached, yes, I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say if I didn't. So I'd ask the applicant to just walk us through what it is you're trying to do and the condition of the lot at this time.
Okay, so right now the house is really past the point of saving. There's like 7-foot ceilings in the house. The whole kitchen is completely fallen down. The ceiling, the stairs to get up to the second floor will never pass any kind of building inspection. So
Windows are tarred on.
yeah, the whole house is completely really condemnable. So really what I'm trying to do is tear it down and then build what we would like to build to start our family with in its place.
And that, according to the plan that's been submitted, which is dated October 6, 2020, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The plan is in the file for participants, for ZBA members and others interested. And for the record, it shows a proposed 50 by 60 foot house drawn near the front of the lot, with the closest side yard setback at 30.9 feet for that. And that's not an issue in an R80 zone. The side yard setback is minimum 35 feet. This also shows a proposed garage, proposed 36 by 40 foot garage. Is that new as well, Mr. Tassellari?
Yeah, there's no garage well.
There's a falling down like shed thing, but it's not.
Yeah,
Not really a garage.
there's a garage that needs to be torn down, but the house itself isn't going to be 50 by 60. That was taken into account a couple of things that we're no longer going to do. The house is actually, when it's all said and done, going to be 49 feet wide by 44 feet long.
Okay, what counts for our purposes in the zoning board is the setbacks. So according to this plan, it shows that you do not need a variance, meaning that you have to stay 35 feet from the side yard setbacks. I'll assume that the builder will, conform with that. And I suggest to the board members what they need is a determination under 1.5E that this will not be substantially more non-conforming because the frontage is apparently 110 feet, which is undersized. This lot When did you acquire it, Mr. Tesselary, Miss?
So it's been in Janie's family for
Like 100 years.
a real long time, and
My uncle
unfortunately,
just died about a year ago now, and so now he was one of 10 children. So now the lot is owned by his 9 brothers and sisters, my grandfather being one of them. And this sale is pending on this variance. Like, we're only going to buy it if we're allowed to build the house.
Understood. So to the members of the board, it appears to be a pre-existing non-conforming use, which means it was existing in this state prior to the implementation of zoning. Under our bylaws, I don't see the need for variance relief unless you say you want to put it closer than 35 feet from the side yard setbacks. That's not drawn here on the plans.
it should show in the plot plan the side setbacks.
Well, it shows it at 30.9 feet on the left-hand side.
And then the right side is a 29.5. It's
That's for the garage.
no, it's with existing garages. You see, it says 29.5.
Yes.
That would be the setback on the right side, 29.5.
Okay, so that, it's hard to see here. Is that to the proposed construction?
Yes. So it would basically be 30-foot setback on the left and 30 feet on the right.
Okay, my apologies. The side yard setbacks the requirements are 35 feet. I see. I misunderstood. I saw a line underneath it that's 47 feet. That's to the existing house, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And pretty much we want to keep the front of the house kind of like where it is, and that's at the 30-foot setback, and pretty much build to the right of that, which will put us at the 30 feet on the other side. So pretty much center it in on the setbacks.
Okay. Well, look, I'll start again. I guess the setbacks are what we have control over, so that's what the decision will be. You said that it's not going to be the size of house that's on the plan, but what we'll be taking a vote on then is whether 30.9 feet and 29.5 feet are sufficient.
Exactly. We'll never get bigger than that.
Yeah, the house we're probably going to build is going to be a little bit smaller.
Okay. And the proposed garage is 10 feet off the side property line, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So members, do you have any other questions for the applicants? Mr. Booley, Mr. Tenori?
I have one. Is there the shed on there? It shows a shed on the plot plan. Is that existing?
Yeah.
It's existing and it's going to get ripped out.
Yeah.
Everything. So there's like 3 sheds on the property and a garage. We're gonna get rid of all that and pretty much just do the house and in the garage.
Yeah, all the existing outbuildings are like, the roofs are collapsing and they're completely unusable.
Yeah.
Okay. So members, I'd suggest that this is in line for variance relief on the 2 side yards. My apologies for misreading that. And also for a 1 IB finding if the board feels it appropriate. Do you have any questions, Jim, further questions, or Alan or Lucas?
Mr. Chairman, do you think we're going to need a different plot plan showing the exact house and setbacks?
No.
Can we make that a condition or?
As long as we, I mean, they'll have to do an as-built at the time, from what I understand, but as long as our decision says no closer than 30.9 feet on the northeasterly side and no closer than 29.5 feet on the southeasterly side, I guess it was. That's what we'll rule. That's what I was talking about.
Well, I just want to make one comment because we've had this issue in the past about farmers' porches, decks, and everything else. So when we say the proposed house is 50 by 60, that includes extensive everything. The porch, the decks, the steps, everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yep, and they've said that it's not going to be that dimension anyway. So again, the setbacks will control. Any other questions? I'll ask if anybody is in attendance from the public who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to the application? For the record, I don't see.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes? Mr. Rich?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rich?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Daniel Rick, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, I represent the estate of Carl Jacobs and we're in favor of granting the variance. We're taking basically a shed and putting a house in it, which is commensurate with the neighborhood. As you know, at the end of Union Street, they built some, and into Mansfield, right across the town line, there's some beautiful homes. So I think this would be nothing but a boon to the neighborhood. I don't think there'll be anybody speaking in opposition, but I just represent the estate, and I know the members of the personal representative and the members of the Jacobs family would approve that this variance be granted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Richard. I apologize. I didn't know you were connected with this application. I would have called on you earlier. But understood.
No, Judge, no, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's their application. I'm just in support of it.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of or opposition to?
Thank you.
I don't, for the record, see anybody else. Board members, is there a motion to close the public hearing on this matter?
I will make that motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Booley to close the public hearing on this matter. Is there a second? Jim, you're muted. Jim, go ahead.
Hey, Tom, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm frozen.
Oh,
So I might have to.
we can hear
back in
and see you. We can hear and see you. So is there a second to the motion to close?
I'm gonna try and get back in.
Oh.
Oh, wait, here we go. You there?
Yes.
All right, sorry. My internet just went down.
Are you, is there a second on the motion to close the public hearing?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Mr. Booley, how do you vote on closing the public hearing? We have to do it by roll call under the rules for remote meetings.
Yes.
Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
And for the record, Mr. Noel votes yes as well. So this is right for a decision on a variance relief on the 2 side yard setbacks and also a 1.5B finding. Jim, Allen?
2 separate motions, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, yes, that would be easiest. Why don't we take the, whichever one you prefer.
Well, I'd make a motion to grant the variance for side yard setbacks no closer than 30.9 feet on the west side and 29.5 feet on the east side, I believe.
I think it's 30 feet on the left and 29.5 on the right.
It's according to the plan of record, so.
According to the plan of record, that's
Yeah.
better.
Understood. Due to the conditions of the lot and the buildings and the rest as has been described. Mr. Tenori, is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that. Sorry again, my internet went in and out, but I'll second it. I know I caught the end of it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the matter for the variance for the 2 side yard setbacks? Then, Mr. Booley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
And Mr. Noel votes yes as well. Then it's under, we have to do a determination under section 1.5E, and the language is something like that the proposed alteration and new construction will not be substantially more detrimental on this pre-existing non-conforming use as what is there now in terms of light, noise, hazards, and the other factors listed. Is there a motion to that effect?
Might as well keep it consistent, Alan.
I'd make a motion for an affirmative finding under 1.5E.
No, second.
Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. Mr. Booley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
And Mr. Noel votes yes as well. Okay, that is it. The Hollywood squares have shifted around. I can't see where anybody is. The application is granted. We will issue a decision. There you are, Mr. Tessler. I couldn't see you. The application is granted and we will issue a decision within the 14 days. It'll be posted then and there's an appeal period that I'm sure Mr. Rich can explain to you. But we are completed and good luck to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Right.
Okay, next on the agenda, and Nicole, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this because it's a 3-page agenda. Next is the application for 6 Todd Drive, Keith and Linda Arnold. Are the Arnolds or somebody representing the Arnolds with us?
Yes.
Yeah, we're here.
Could you identify yourself for the record by name as to whoever's talking?
This is Keith Arnold.
Okay, you are the applicant.
Yep.
Can you tell us briefly what it is that you intend to do? And the members, we can look at the application as the applicant describes it. Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to build a garage for personal use for vehicles and workshop and what have you. Detached garage.
And you've submitted a plan of record dated very recently, March 4, 2021, showing a proposed garage and an existing, that's an existing house, of course, correct?
Yes.
And the proposed garage looks to be no closer than 12 feet off of the side yard setback. And it is a detached structure, correct?
Correct.
This is a R40 zoning district. Again, however, it appears that this is a pre-existing non-conforming use. I'm not sure that, I don't think we need any variance relief on this, as it would be 12 feet off the side yard and an accessory building can be as close as 10 feet. But I think this is in line for a similar finding under 1.5E. Members, do you have questions of the applicant?
I do not.
Not at this time.
Okay. It looks like there is sufficient frontage, but it is an undersized lot at 36,410 square feet where 40,000 is required. Therefore, my observation, and I think that's why the building inspector probably sent the applicant here for a finding under 1.5E, that the proposed use as depicted on the plan of record that we are all looking at will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing use in terms of the factors listed in the section. Let me just ask the applicant, is there a garage there now?
No, there's no garage.
Nothing.
So the question, to board members, I think, is whether this plan is going to be substantially more detrimental to the use or to the lot.
Oh, he's talking. Okay.
Any questions from the board members first?
No.
Seeing none, let me ask if there are any members of the public here who would voice in favor of the application as filed or against it. Just raise your hand or unmute yourself and speak up.
I'm a neighbor and a butter, and I have no objections to it.
Thank you. Can you identify yourself by name?
Jeannie Kegney. I live at number 4.
Thank you. As your name appears on the Hollywood Squares here. Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak in favor of or in opposition to? Seeing none, is there a motion, members, to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. motion in order for a vote by roll call. Mr. Booley, how do you vote on closing the public hearing?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Noel votes yes for the record. Sorry, folks, we've got to do it by roll call, audioly, by voice roll call because we're participating by Zoom. Those are the new rules. So it takes a little more time, but we try to do it right. Members open for discussion now. It doesn't appear that variance is required. Do you agree?
I have no issue.
Correct.
And that variance is not required. So this would be in line for a motion under 1.5E that the proposed alteration or an addition as shown on the plan of record will not render this use substantially more detrimental to the area or the neighborhood in terms of light, noise, hazards, or the other factors in the bylaw.
I would make a motion for an affirmative finding under 1.5E.
I will second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion, members? I'm comfortable with what's here, what's been applied for. It's fairly straightforward.
I appreciate color plans.
Yeah, the blue shading of the plan is very helpful. Thank you to whoever put that together. Mr. Reed, I guess, the engineer. Thank you. Agreed. Roll call vote then. Mr. Bruley, how do you vote on the motion to make an affirmative finding under 1.5E?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
Mr. Noel, for the record, votes yes as well. So to the applicant again, thank you for your participation, and we will get a decision in writing together, get that posted within the 14 days, and it'll be subject to an appeal period after that, and then you can get going. All right?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry if I'm talking too rapidly, anybody, just slow me down. I've had some caffeine to boost me tonight because it's not usual that we have 7 or 8 things to get through, and that's what we're trying to do. Next on the agenda, and we are past the allotted time, so it is the application for 13 Sturdy Street, the applicant owner Todd Pasqualino, Brian and Evelyn Cahoon. Who is speaking for that application tonight? Could you identify yourself? Is there anybody to present the application?
Can you hear? Sorry, I think I was muted, but Todd Pasqualino. I don't believe Evelyn could make it.
That's fine. I see you. Can you just briefly tell us, we have the plan that was submitted, of course, in the application. Can you tell us what you are seeking to do?
Yeah, so we're looking to build a 1-level in-law in the rear of the existing home. Her family to stay together. So basically, her son would be moving in the existing home, and Evelyn and her husband would be moving in the in-law. It's basically a 1-bedroom. The interior square footage comes up to about 736 square feet.
Okay, and the plan of record that I'm looking at, dated November 23, 2020, correct me if I'm wrong, shows the intended construction to the rear of the present house with a side yard setback no closer than 25.4 feet. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes. I'm sorry, I tried to print the plan out and I couldn't, so I'm flipping back and forth on the screen.
That's okay. I mean, that's the plan we have in the file. Members or Nicole can correct me if I'm wrong as well. And I'm assuming that Mr. Iafrate, building commissioner, sent you to us for a couple of reasons, because this is, again, a pre-existing non-conforming lot. I'll assume it's pre-existing. We'll ask about that. And would therefore need a finding under 1.5E. And also it's exceeding 25% increase in habitable space. So it would have to come to us rather than being done as of right. Is that, Mr. Iafrate, I see you're with us. Please tell us if you have anything to add to any of the applications, Mr. Iafrate.
Okay. Yeah, that's Mr. Che. You hit the nail on the head. That's why he was sent in this direction.
If it's under 25% increase now with the new bylaw, they could proceed as a matter of right, excuse me. But because it's over that, obviously here by the plan, they have to come before us. And that's why the applicant is here. For the record, it is a frontage is 103 feet. So we know that's below what's required. Total area is just under 24,000 square feet. And this is, what zoning district is this? Do we know? Well, regardless, those are undersized in any zoning district. Zoning, this is one of the issues that Nicole and I talked about. We have to get the application process so that the zoning district is always affirmatively stated here.
Mr. Chairman, it's an R40.
Okay. I'll note for the record that these are the frontage and the size lot sizes under R40 as well, no matter what zone it's in. Agreed. Let me ask the applicant, when did you acquire the lot?
Hi, Evelyn Cahoon speaking here.
Thank you.
Property owner. We purchased the lot in 1994, I believe, from the estate of Ethel Farris, my husband's grandmother. We've lived here now for 40 years, and we're hoping to stay on the property, but for health reasons, we need to be on one level.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me just ask you, it was in the family. Was the house there for many years before you acquired it?
Yes, the house has been here since 1925, I believe. My husband's grandmother and grandfather were the second owners of the house. And I'm not sure what year they bought it in.
No, that's fine. What we need to know is, what we have to ask about is the existing conditions at the implementation of zoning in the 1970s. So this apparently predates that. Members, please ask questions if you'd like to on that subject or others.
Mr. Chairman, the plan we're looking at is titled Sewage Disposal System, correct? That is the plan you're referring to?
Yes, it is. I note, however, that it is a stamped engineered plan.
It is.
Titled that, and it's also from November of 2020. So, by my view, it's acceptable as long as it shows the meets and bounds and it's stamped and engineered.
That was what I was going to reaffirm.
Yep. Now, the one comment I had noted here on my scribbles, I'd like to see the setback lines for the other corner of the house as well. But it looks that, the closest distance is going to be 25.4 feet to the side yard setback. So that's all our decision is going to be able to say. No closer than 25.4 feet on the westerly side. Agreed, members?
I agree.
Is the zone stated here on the plan, perhaps? I had...
It is. If you look right above where it says Trowbridge Associates, probably middle of the page on the bottom.
Okay.
Right above that, 2 lines above that is zone R.
Thank you. Zone 40. Yep, thank you. So what is the side yard setback in the zone 40? Is that
25?
That's 25 feet anyway. So a variance is not required unless the house is going to come closer than that. Members, do you agree?
Agreed.
So this would be in order for a finding, again, under 1.5E. The town has a lot of undersized lots, and it's not unusual to encounter a group of them like this, where somebody wants to add to it or change what's there. If it's under 25% increase, they can do it as of right through the building commissioner, Mr. Iafrede, but if it's more than that, it needs a finding under 1.5E. Members, any other questions on this plan?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So anyways, just to give an update on this, so.
Is this
before
Mr. Salvo?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yes. Just to let the board members know and other people in the audience know what happened. When I hired Mr. Trowbridge to do this, we had to design the septic system to make this addition fit. And so we didn't want to make the addition being non-compliant. So that's why we went a little extra on the 29 point, whatever it is there, in case there was a boulder and you had to move it a couple inches, it would still be, you know, he'd be able to get it within the variance of the setback.
Okay, I see. So this started out as a septic project.
Right. When we hired them to do the engineering, we told them that this proposal for an addition, you know, prior to doing the septic system, that had to go in first before the addition. And that's how we get to those numbers.
But these numbers will hold, correct? To
Correct.
for the construction.
Yep, everything is in place. Everything's been certified. It's all done and inspected by the town and the engineer.
Okay.
It's just waiting on the variance or whatever we need to do to move forward.
Because again, the numbers are the setbacks are what is shown on the plan,
Correct.
what we have to deal with. So
Yes, sir.
no, it appears no variance is required unless members, you say something different.
I'm good.
Jim, you're in agreement. Alan,
Yeah.
Lucas, if you have anything to ask or add. Okay. Is there anyone from the public attending to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? Is there somebody at a 7041 number who wishes to speak? No? Okay, you're lighting up. I thought that was because you were trying to speak to us. I don't see anybody wishing to speak in favor of or in opposition to. Nicole, members, correct me if you think I'm wrong. If there are none and there are no other questions from the board, this would be in line for a motion, to close the public hearing on this matter.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Booley, how do you vote on your own motion?
Yes.
Mr. Tenore?
Yes.
Mr. Noel votes yes as well. All right. Is there a motion or finding under 1.5e or further discussion of the members?
I'm comfortable to make a motion for an affirmative finding under 1.5e.
I'll second.
Okay. The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on that motion? Nope. I'm comfortable with this as well. Again, I like to see the side yards, the setbacks drawn on all the corners of the affected side, but this one we'll assume is no less than 25.4 feet. And in any event, it's not in line for variance relief. So it's simply a 1.5e finding that we'll be making. Mr. Booley, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Tenore?
Yes.
Mr. Noel votes yes as well. Again, to this applicant and to Mr. Salvo, thank you for your assistance as well. We'll draft this decision up, have it posted, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for taking part. Bye. Okay. And Mr. Iafrede, thank you as well for adding to the discussion. Please do so if you think we're missing something that, you know, the reason that you sent them to us or anything like that. Thank you for helping out. Okay, at dizzying speed, we are at the application for 20 Eisenhower Drive, and we are familiar with the applicant somewhat because the property was before us in the last few months. This seems like old school night. Good evening to the Bucciaris. I see that you followed through on what we thought should happen and filed an application for a variance now. I'll open the public hearing for the record at 7:41. Members, the plan of record is in the file, and we in fact saw this over the last few months with the appeal of a the prior building commissioner's decision and permit. For the record, we overturned that decision, I believe, in January, at one of the meetings in January, and we kind of nudged the Bucciaris, saying that they may need a variance if in years ahead they have to finance the property, because this appeared to be a construction that was not in conformance given the decision to overturn the building inspector. But we overturned it on the technical grounds of what existed in the record at the time. So that's a long-winded way of saying, members, please welcome to ask the Bucciaris any questions or elicit other information.
Tom, this is going to be a variance and a 1.5E.
Well, yes, indeed, because this is an undersized lot again. And as you may remember, and as you see on the plan of record, for the record, the plan of record is the one dated October 16 of 2020. Remember, there were 2 or 3 plans in the previous activity. And yes, because this shows the shed wood structure at 5.19 feet and 4.42 feet off of the side yard setback on the west side. So correct, this would be in line for a variance and a finding, because again, it is an undersized lot in an R40 district. I don't know, I don't have any further questions for the Bucciaris. Other members, if you do, feel free.
This is where the shed is existing now, correct?
Yeah, well, the shed,
Where they started to build it originally.
the shed had existed for years and years. And in fact, the Bucciaris presented photos from the last couple of years showing the dilapidated condition. They went to building commissioner prior, not Mr. Iafrede, but the building commissioner for a permit in, I think, August or September. There was some communications and a couple plans submitted, and the application was actually amended in the system at some point. There was some concern as to what the building commissioner had to go on at the time the permit was initially granted. And for that reason, I'm summarizing, but for that reason, we in fact overturned the building commissioner. And the question tonight is whether to grant the variance and the other relief sought. So the shed had been partially reconstructed in the fall under the events that were going on then. Correct, Mr. Booley? Do you have any other questions or concerns, however?
I do not.
And Jim, I don't see you with questions or concerns. Let me ask if there's anybody in attendance from the public to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application for variance and a finding. For the record, I don't see anybody trying to speak up. Somebody connecting to audio, are you in attendance and wishing to speak for this? Sally? No. For the record, none. Then members, this would be in line for a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Mr. Booley, how do you vote on the
Yes.
motion to close? Thank you. Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
Mr. Noel, for the record, votes yes to close the public hearing. This is in line now for discussion, and I see no reason not to grant a variance here, members. Though this is very close to the side yard property line, evidence was submitted in the file showing the shed existed there. And in fact, I believe what we went through in the fall, the Bucciaris actually moved the shed further away from where it had been, so that in fact, it's a couple feet further from the property line than it was before the tear down. That's my memory from the records in the file.
Having the letter from the direct abutter in favor is helpful, positive.
That's right, correct. Noted for the record, and thank you for that. And it was the abutter, of course, who had raised concerns that the permit was not properly issued, or was issued in error anyway, and they cleared up those concerns to their satisfaction in January, and have now voiced support for it as well. So though this is close to the property line, it's further than it was before. I think there's evidence in the record that this is a pre-existing non-conforming use that the applicant has in good faith tried to make less non-conforming. So I would be in favor of a motion for variance relief. It's apparently a pre-existing non-conforming lot, as we had discussed before. And the location of the shed has been actually moved to make it a less non-conforming use. Is there a motion for variance relief for this structure as per the plan of record of October 16 to be no closer than the foot measurements indicated on the plan due to the conditions on the land and the factors in the bylaw?
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the variance relief necessary? Seeing none. Mr. Booley, how do you vote on the motion to approve variance relief?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Mr. Noel votes yes as well. Again, as shown on the plan of record of October 16th. Next in line is discussion and or a motion for relief under section 1.5e. I don't think there's a question based on our prior hearings and this hearing that this is a pre-existing non-conforming use. Bucciari's came into it, the shed was falling down, and they have made it less non-conforming. Is there further discussion on that issue?
Nope.
Okay, is there a motion then on the 1.5e finding?
I would make the motion for affirmative finding under 1.5e.
I will second.
I'm sensing there's no further discussion on that issue. Mr. Booley, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
Mr. Noel votes yes as well. To the Bucciaris, finally, after some 5 or 6 months of appearing before us, you probably hope never to see us again. We don't share the feeling. You've been very helpful and cooperative, and we appreciate your participation in clearing this up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get a decision going and posted within 2 weeks. And good luck to you.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep on.
Okay, next on the agenda is, I think the last one we have to take care of prior to getting to the items that I previously mentioned. The property address is 87 Oak Street. The owners are, or the applicant owner, John and Diane Crugnali. And the applicant is asking to allow an addition on their pre-existing non-conforming lot. There's some conformity with the non-conformities tonight. For the record, this is a R40 zoning district. This is 87 Oak Street. The frontage is 125 feet, so right there it's non-conforming. Also, the lot size is listed as just under 19,000 square feet in an R40 requiring 40,000 square feet. So this is apparently a non-conforming use. The plan of record, for the record, is titled Plot Plan 87 Oak Street. November 13, 2020, it shows an existing house and something that's labeled Prop Add, which I take it is proposed addition. The Crignalis are here tonight. I see them somewhere.
Yeah.
Can you just explain the basis for the application?
Well, we just try to add on to enlarge a bedroom, enlarge the kitchen, and add a bathroom to the rear of the house.
And that is shown on this plan of record within the box titled Proposed Addition or Prop Add, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And again, the plan of record shows 26 feet and 26.6 feet, if I'm reading it correctly, to the closest, the southerly side yard boundary. And in an R40 zone, I believe that would not require a variance. Members, do you agree with my assessment looking at the plan of record?
Correct.
But it would require a finding because it's an undersized lot, although not sure if this is 25% over what is there. I'll assume it is because they're with us. They came to us tonight. Question on the frontage. Where's the frontage measured? This is a corner lot on Maggie Lane and Oak Street, right? I always have the question of how frontage is measured on a corner lot like that. It's listed in the application as 125 feet. I don't want to put the applicants may not know the answer to this. Members, do you have anything, or Mr. Iafredi? It's on a corner lot, and one side seems to be 115 feet, the other side appears to be 105 feet. And I guess it doesn't make a difference for our decision if we were saying it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. I'm just curious. Frontages are not combined on a corner lot, I believe, although we've discussed that before.
I don't think they are, Mr. Chair. I'm looking in the zoning book to see how.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you or us on the spot there. I'm just throwing it out there. Something maybe we could look at for later use or even changing in the bylaw. You know, why I think the frontage has to be on one side, so therefore even two sides that add up to a greater distance doesn't qualify. Regardless, the lot is undersized, so we can go on that basis by itself. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. Iafredi, as well. So we can settle that off meeting and maybe propose a change to the bylaw or hear why that is the bylaw.
Totally fine.
Does the applicant have anything further to add?
No, that's basically just what we're trying to do with the lot.
Can you tell us?
I think we're there because it is 25%. We're adding on more than 25%.
Okay. For the record, have you owned the lot for many years, or did I see that you were just acquired the lot?
No, we just bought it back in November.
Was the house there prior to your arrival, of course?
Yes, yeah, it's been there since I'm going to say the 50s or 60s.
It's that age house?
Yes, yeah.
Approximate, okay.
Yeah, right.
Members, you know, we can ask for proof. I'm willing to go with the observations of the applicants that this is a construction that's been there for some time prior to zoning. It's up to you, but it's open for discussion. Other questions from members, if there are any.
I'm good with making that
Finding. Okay.
finding.
Let me ask, is there anybody else in attendance from the public who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to the application of the Cornelius as filed? For the record, seeing none. Members, any further discussion or questions? If not, it'd be in line for motion first to close the public hearing.
I'll make the
Make a
motion.
motion to close. Go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead. You can do it. Let's keep it consistent for Nicole.
Exactly. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Booley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Tenore?
Yes.
Mr. Noel votes yes as well to close the public hearing. Yes, Nicole, this is going to be really easy. All the motions are Alan's, seconds are Jim's. So we don't have to keep switching them around for Nicole to type up the decisions or the minutes. Sometimes we try to confuse her, but we won't do that tonight. Members, any further discussion on this? I'm comfortable that this is a pre-existing non-conforming So a finding under 1.5E is in order. It's for an addition adjoining to the house. The side yard setback is not going to be infringed in an R40 zone, so we don't need a variance, but we do need a finding. Further discussion or observations or motion?
I'm good.
Make a motion for an affirmative finding under 1.5E.
I will second.
And we're not going to confuse Nicole even with the last application. Thank you. No further discussion. Then Mr. Booley, how do you vote on the motion for a 1.5E finding?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
Mr. Noel, for the record, votes yes as well. Okay. To the Cugnales, thank you very much for participating and explaining things to us. We will get a decision typed up and posted, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, for the record, it is 7:58 by my clock. Are we on daylight savings or Eastern Standard? I never can keep it straight. It doesn't matter. 7:58. Next on the agenda is now Zero Tipping Place. So I'm going to open the hearing for Zero Tipping Place to explain some background. If the applicant is in attendance, they can introduce themselves. But for the record, we, through Nicole and Paul, communicated with the applicant concerning our very packed hearing schedule tonight. This was, I think, the last application that had been filed, so we thought it, and there's a little bit of background to get into on this as well. So I asked Nicole to alert the applicant ahead of time that we would continue this to our next meeting, which is 3 weeks from tonight. But Zero Tipping Place was before us a few years ago on a, well, I'll say related, though different plan of action, I guess. The applicant is represented by attorney Peter Clark. Mr. Clark had presented to us a few years ago, and again, I think it was in 2014, though I don't remember, and then is before us for a further application for relief that takes a little discussion and getting into. Members, do you have anything to add tonight? Well, let me ask first, is the applicant here by a representative or the applicant itself? I don't see the applicant represented, and that's fine. As I said, again, we had communicated that we would probably have to put this off to the next meeting. So members, I'd ask you to review the file contents, including the prior materials from 2014 to get a little history, and we can discuss it further at the next meeting. With that in mind, the hearing's been opened. With that in mind, is there a motion to continue this public hearing on Zero Tipping Place to April 14th at, say, put it at 7:05?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
No further discussion on that. Mr. Booley, how do you vote on the motion to continue?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
Mr. Noel, for the record, votes yes as well. Thank you. Nicole, I'll ask you to communicate with Attorney Clark, let him know that we did open, and then as planned, continued it to April 14 at 7:05 p.m. And we will get into it further at that time.
No problem, I can do that.
Thank you, Nicole. Nicole is the faceless, refuses to turn on a camera, but very able.
I'm sorry, there's just too much going on behind me. Too many kids, too much.
I understand. We saw a cat in our meeting 6 months ago, so anything goes.
Listen, Nicole, I had to make dinner for my son while I was doing this, so I understand.
I cooked dinner for 6 while I was doing this.
It's amazing. That's amazing. All right. For the record, it's 8:02. The next item on the agenda is the 40B continued comprehensive permit application. However, I'm going to, at the option of the chair, I'm going to skip ahead. Sorry, somebody's mic is on. Okay, thank you. It was giving us feedback. Because it's after 7:35.
Yeah, that'd be me.
Sorry, somebody's phone is open. Could you please mute it or turn down the volume? The applicant for 735, property address is 0 Knollwood Street. Is the applicant with us? We have communicated with the applicant prior to the meeting on this as well, but is the applicant with us?
Mr. Noel, I'm here. My name is Philip Ibrahim, as is Mr. Don Bornstein. And I believe Mr. Kitchen, who was the gentleman who had emailed the town as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Kitchen, are you with us right now?
He's actually got his hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I see, Jonathan Kitchen, thank you. Mr. Kitchen had submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for certain records. Staff and town council determined that some of those records are confidential records from the last time this was before the board, which was, I think, 2008. And because of that, we have to go into executive session to discuss those records and whether they are to be released. Mr. Kitchen, I'm aware that you emailed in the last couple of weeks asking to withdraw the request for public records. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, but you also supplied an email, I believe in opposition to the application, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I feel, and having spoken with town council, with an outstanding Freedom of Information Act request, I don't feel comfortable simply not acting on it. I think we've started down that path. And for that reason, members, I am recommending that we have to go to executive session to deal with that request. And the request is to release records that were previously attorney-client privilege records from 2008. Those records, if we release them after tonight's executive session, would be available to not only Mr. Kitchen, who wants to now withdraw the request, but also to the applicant and to others involved in this matter. Because of the COVID-19 Zoom meeting, there's no technical way to do that unless we do that at the end of our meeting. We will, in effect, take a vote to go into executive session and not to return to public session. That means the meeting will be over. For that reason, I have to now bump this to the end of the meeting after the 40B matter is fully reviewed and discussed. I realize Mr. Abraham, communicated that he wished to be heard tonight. However, in consultation with town council, I believe that's the only way we can do it and minimize any exposure under the Open Records Act. That is to continue this to the end of the meeting tonight, go into executive session, and then to continue the public hearing portion of this matter at the next meeting, which is 3 weeks from tonight. Now that I've laid that out, I will allow the applicant to talk to us briefly and let us know if he'd like what he is attempting to do. Are you represented by counsel tonight, Mr. Ibrahim?
Yes, Mr. Don Bornstein is on with us as well.
Okay, so either one of you, please proceed briefly, though you've heard the chair's determination as to how we have to proceed tonight.
Well, I purchased the land from the town quite some time ago, and I quite simply would like to put a single-family home on it. The entrance to the land, it is at least 3 times or more larger in its totality to the neighboring homes, and the entrance is clearly drawn as something that would have been egress to that property in the 60s prior to the zoning. if not for the fact that the brothers who had laid out the subdivision made it 30 feet instead of 50, this would have been built and by me, I hope. And so I am looking forward to asking the board to see that there's no denigration of the neighborhood to put a single family home here. I can put the home set back far enough so that it's not in any way, shape, or form causing any issues for the neighbors. And in fact, I have written to the neighbors and called the Kitchens and left my voicemail with my personal number. If there's anything that I can do to make it comfortable and palatable, I would be more than happy to do that. I wasn't seeking a 40B or any of the other things that would be, quite egregious to the neighborhood. I would really like just to put a single family home on it. That was my intention when I bought it. That was my understanding with the town when I paid, a good sum to buy it. And the building inspector at the time, and I had a good meeting of the minds that this would be something that shouldn't be difficult on the neighborhood to absorb, since it is a single family home.
And for the record, this obviously was before the zoning board some years ago, and there was a determination there. And so the public records that are confidential that we'll be reviewing and looking at tonight are what arise from that prior association with the zoning board some years ago. But with that, I'm going to stick to my original plan because we have to follow through with the executive session and it has to be at the end of the meeting. I am going to put this on the table for the end of tonight's meeting. I will represent to Mr. Ibrahim, if he wishes to take leave now, he can do so. That we will take it up simply for me to then take a vote to go into executive session and before going in to continue the matter to April 14th.
Mr. Knoll, I appreciate that, and I'm more than happy to
Go ahead,
have you.
Mr. Ibrahim.
Sorry, I apologize. I'm more than happy to have you go into executive session and extend it to the April 14th date. And I would invite the Kitchens or anybody else that has any questions to reach out to me. I've left my phone number and mailed it to each of them. And I would be more than happy to do anything that I can in my power to make it a palatable and good experience for everyone in the neighborhood. I would also request that any records that are released to the Kitchens would also be released to myself and our attorney.
Yes, of course. They would be public record, and we will have Paul and Nicole as a courtesy send them to you, whatever's released.
May I also see Mr. Kitchen's email to the board?
It's part of the record. It's part of the record. So sure, Nicole and Paul, we can get that to the applicant and counsel, Mr. Borenstein, I'm sorry.
And I would like to extend that invitation to the Kitchens or anyone in the neighborhood to reach out to me so that we can get together and have a meeting of the minds and do this in a community fashion as we would expect to do.
Very well stated, and that's always invited by this board whenever there's a controversy concerning any development or application to us. So that's a good recommendation. But with that, I'm going to take the chair's opportunity to now suspend this, to table this, not to continue it yet. I will take this up after we finish with our 40B application, 253 Mansfield Ave. That may take a half hour, that may take an hour from now. I will represent to Mr. Ibrahim and to council and to the abutters as well that when I take it up after 253 Mansfield, it will only be for the purposes of continuing the hearing to April 14th at, excuse me, we make that earlier, we'll make that 7:02 to put it ahead of the other application. And then take a vote to go into executive session. Is that?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim, and thank you, council, as well. With that, I'm going to exercise the chair's discretion to simply table this till after our next item, which is 253 Mansfield Ave, Chapter 40B comprehensive permit, which is going to take us some time tonight. Nicole, please do not let me end the meeting by signing off as I did a few months ago, simply because it was 9:30 and I was tired and I said, oh, thanks, good night, everybody. And the meeting wasn't over, in fact. Don't let that happen tonight, Nicole. You were in charge. Okay. Next item is the continued public hearing for 253 Mansfield Ave. The applicant owners 253 Reservoir LLC. Applicant seeking to construct a 60-unit rental apartment building, including 15 affordable housing units under Chapter 40B. I see the applicant's representatives, or some of them, with us tonight. Members, as you know, this was originally before us last summer, I think in June or July. And then for various reasons, not particularly applicable to us, but the applicant asked us to hold off for some time because there was a possibility of some other development at the locus. The applicant then, around the end of the year, said, nope, we want to go through with the 40B. I believe we did so in January or February briefly. I will continue by now asking the applicant to simply bring us up to date as to what they have submitted and where we are in their estimation. And I know we did receive a waivers list, which I think is new to the file. Is that correct, Ms. Sweet, or whoever is speaking for the applicant?
It's the original waiver list that we just updated.
Okay, thank you. But it is updated recently, correct?
Correct.
All right. Where are we on this? Can you tell us what has changed since we last looked at the plans, last looked at anything else in the file? Because there was the several-month interruption on this. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. For the record, Lynn Sweet, LDS Consulting Group, Wellesley, representing the applicant. I am joined by our attorney, Paul Haverty, and one of our civil engineering consultant, Cameron Campbell, and Anthony. I believe our client is out there somewhere, Anthony Rosita. So since the last meeting, our engineer did meet with, speak to the fire department. There were several issues that were raised by the fire department with regard to the emergency access at the front of the site and with regard to fire truck access at the back of the site. So Cameron is going to bring a plan up showing that. We also did some engineering test pits in conjunction with our Conservation Commission hearings. And those soils were different than we had expected. So we are re-engineering the stormwater management system, and we expect to have a new plan for that. A few things are going to change, but the system will still meet the 10 stormwater management standards. So we will have that for you well in advance of your next meeting. And we are going in front of the Conservation Commission on the 12th with that plan as well. So same week, I believe. We did submit a revised waiver list. I think that's going to be the bulk of the conversation tonight. I did have a really good conversation with the town planner with Paul about the outstanding issues. One issue that was open or concerning was with regard to traffic and with regard to the possible need for having a crosswalk on the street. And I believe that Paul did some research with the police department, and the findings were that there were very few accidents in the area in question, and none of those accidents involved pedestrians or fatalities. So I'm hoping at least that particular issue around the concerns about the crosswalk, we can hopefully check that off the list. So the other thing we did was we did submit a revised lighting plan. There was just one light that the board expressed concern about, that it was going to be shining into the garage, which really there was a wall there. So we had that taken off, and I believe that was sent in a couple of days ago. So I actually think that outside of going through the waiver list and the revised stormwater management, that there are not as far as we can see a lot of open issues, but we're certainly, our ears are open to your questions and concerns. So if it's okay, I'm gonna allow Cameron to show the fire plan, and then if you want me to put the waiver list up on the screen, we can go through that too.
Yeah, thank you. Paul, where are we with peer review on these issues?
Well, Pat,
Pat Brennan is here. Okay.
Pat's here. Unfortunately, I thought I had sent him the waiver list. I just sent it to him. We received the lighting plan, I think yesterday, so he had that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, just a question procedurally, the stormwater update that Ms. Sweet just talked about, that goes to conservation, not really our peer review. Is that right, Patrick?
Yeah, conservation's engineer, John Chessier, has been taking the lead on the stormwater review. Paul's been good enough to send me the reports from Mr. Chessier, so I've been following it just to make sure that I'm comfortable with it as well. But Mr. Chessier has been taking the lead on that with conservation.
I'm sorry, Lynn, did you disagree with the response as to where it gets peer reviewed?
No. I agree. We had one working session with John. We had, I believe, in one hearing. So yeah, that's where things stand at the moment.
But the stormwater plan that's not within our purview, is it?
The review of the plans as they pertain to the Wetlands Protection Act is in the purview of the Conservation Commission. But stormwater is in essence, both boards tend to review, but I think your board has delegated it to John because they're looking at it in more detail because of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Is that, Mr. Brennan, you're affirming?
Yes, that's correct.
And so, I mean, obviously, if the stormwater plan affects the location of things, that affects our plans as well. I guess what I'm asking is, Mr. Brennan, will you be able to, at the next meeting in 3 weeks, be able to give us an update as to your observations of everything that Ms. Sweet is talking about?
Yes, I will. Like I said, I've been following along with Mr. Chessier's review and the applicant's response. So I've been following it, so I know what's changed so far, and obviously there's other changes coming. So I will continue to follow that, and I can therefore, explain to the board what's changed, and if anything else is needed. But I think
that's the guidance I'd be looking for right there. What's changed and what are the concerns as peer review? So thank you. I just needed to get reset on that. Conservation issues, environmental issues are always straddling both boards, both bodies. Go ahead.
Chair Paul, can I just, in addition to what Pat's saying, that when we receive the revised plans, I'll make sure that conservation sees it, fire department. But I also want to just say, can confirm what Lynn's been saying. I've been working with fire and conservation, and fire is satisfied with the revisions made. Their issues are being addressed, and I talked to the conservation director, and she tells me she thinks this is really close on their end. So it's getting to the finish line.
Great. I understand also, I'm not trying to put Mr. Campbell off because I want to hear about that specifically, but I understand also we've emailed the applicant our last decision, 40B decision, which we just rendered, not for substance, of course, but for kind of format and procedure. So Ms. Sweet, as we may have discussed before, I don't remember, we asked the applicant on a 40B to kind of put together not just the waiver list, but a draft decision that they would propose as acceptable. And then that speeds the process. We can then conform our concerns to that and get to a finish line more quickly than if we just start drafting it ourselves and then you say, well, wait, we didn't include this, that, and the other thing. So is that something that you're going to be able to follow through with?
Yes, that is our understanding, and we thank Paul for sending along the Word documents from the last decision. Our attorney Paul Haverty and his associate Chris Alvin are going to be working on the decision, and we hope to be able to present a draft at the next meeting as well, if there's time to review it and the will of the board.
Great, that's great. I see Mr. Haverty. Thank you, Council, for taking part. Just for form, obviously the issues are different than the last one. Please change the property address at least before giving it back. But Paul thought, and I agree, that it might be helpful to, give you just for form and to get it going on your end. So thank you. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Sweet. Did you want to throw things to Mr. Campbell?
Yep, if he's able to share his screen.
And Mr. Campbell, you are with?
I'm with DeSalle Bergsala, the civil engineers for the site.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
And I'm gonna share my screen to show what I did today to meet the fire department's requests. Can everyone see it?
It's on the screen. Thank you. Yes, very clearly.
So they asked that we keep the second curb entrance because there's two existing curb cuts now, and they asked that we keep the second one open as an emergency access, as before we were proposing to close it with a Cape Cod berm, and they want us to keep it open and put a gate with a lock that they have the key to as an emergency driveway. And then the driveway along the left side of the building is to remain paved as 10 feet wide. And then as it gets to the back of the building, it will extend 30 feet past the building and expand to a 12-foot wide driveway so that they can get their ladder truck back there and access the back of the building.
That's for fire safety issues that the department raised. Is that right?
Yes.
So this plan.
So this is going to entail, I understand that some of that driveway or roadway is currently gravel, so that there will be a little bit of paving in addition to adding the gate and the length. I think the other question from the fire department was with regard to the specifications for the Geo Grid.
Yeah.
Something, Cameron, you can, is that going to be submitted as well?
Yeah, we included the detail for the Geo Grid. It's on the detail sheet. I don't have that on hand right now. But the Geo Grid on this side, it's the plastic Geo Grids that get placed on a gravel base, and then you plant grass over them so that they can hold the trucks, and it'll be a mountable curb, so the ladder truck can drive over it, and then they'll be able to drive on this grass without sinking into the grass if they ever have to get access to this side of the building. And then they were concerned about the gutters of the building putting water all over this and making the grass wet and having their tires sink in. And the gutters are all going to be directed towards this large underground infiltration system in the back, so that, and we let them know that, so there won't be an issue with the water running off the roof and soaking this area from the building.
They want some specs for the Geo Grid. Is that it? As to?
Yeah, they wanted the specs. They were concerned. So in addition to the new set of plans, there'll just be some more detail. So I think that those were the 3 or 4 things that the fire department was concerned about with regard to fire safety.
Okay, so thank you for the new plan. Whatever date is on it, I don't see it.
I haven't changed the date yet. I worked on it today.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. You'll submit it.
Yeah, it hasn't been submitted yet.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, and so when we submit our next set of plans, we will try and do a narrative to basically do a bullet point of what the changes were.
That's helpful.
Hopefully that will benefit both the zoning board, the Concom, and their peer reviewers.
Yeah, that's very
The
helpful.
bulk of it is going to be with regard to the drainage analysis.
Okay. So there's no big change on the, construction or footprint or anything?
Oh, no, none of that. This is all happened underground, but I don't know if Cameron, if you want to add some more detail, because this is out of my expertise.
Yeah, so I went out there with John Chesia, the peer reviewer for conservation, and we originally had one test pit in this area, and so we dug a second test pit over here and a third test pit up front over here, and we found that the site is mostly fill. As you can tell, it's pretty much a big wall, and it's filled on top of what was originally there, and so it's mostly like a sandy fill on top of the kind of not so great soils underneath that are for the reservoir. So the soils underneath aren't as sandy and they don't infiltrate water as nicely. So we had to take that into account while designing the drainage. So we had to change our infiltration rate for our drainage system, and then we found a higher groundwater up here at this system. So we had to remove we had a small infiltration system in this front section that we had to get rid of because it would have been in the groundwater. And so now all the infiltration will be taking place in the nice sandy material out back here.
But there's no changes to the building, to the park.
No changes to the building.
It's all, no one will know what's going on except for the engineers. It's all happening.
Okay. Members, please jump in with any questions, or Paul, of course, as well. I don't have any right now on this. So do we move on to the next issue, members? Yes? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah.
As the fire department, well, they don't have the specs yet, so I guess you don't have an okay on the plan yet, but.
Yeah, they haven't seen that revised driveway, but I've talked to Deputy Chief Jason Robbins, and that's what he asked for.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the update.
Yep.
To that aspect. What is next?
I believe we are up to the waiver list, and Phil and I went through it the other day. Paul and I went through it the other day. I'm sorry. Too many hearings at night. So I don't know if you want to go through every detail or if you want to go through the changes. I'm just not sure how your board wants to do it.
Let me ask Paul if he has any guidance, because I wasn't involved in the communication. Paul, is there anything in particular that you spotted?
No, actually, everything was pretty standard. I had a couple of recommendations for them to amend based on what you had asked for 195 Mansfield. So I know, Lynn, you were looking at a couple things regarding wetlands, stormwater.
Right. So there are two changes in response to your requests were I believe we deleted the wetland protection waiver, and we will also delete stormwater management. We just wanted to make sure that Cameron got through his calculations, and it sounds like he believes that we can, we're not going to be asking for waivers for either of those local bylaws. The other question you had was you wanted some specific dimensions for the entry sign added to the waiver list, and Anthony has said that it would be a sign that has a 3-foot leg, meaning it'll come 3 feet off the ground, and then it'll be a 4x8 sign. So those were the only things that we had discussed that you needed additional information on, but I'm happy to go through each waiver if
Okay, so
and I may even have Paul do it just because he probably knows the technical aspect of, I can share my screen.
We would just want to make sure on the sign, you know, I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head what the dimensional requirements. It's possible you don't even need a waiver for it. I think that came up with 195, I think, that they had asked for it. And then when we looked at the dimensions, it was actually within the current standard. So we can take a look at that and figure that out.
Yeah, and in reality, it's going to be much smaller than the pylon sign that you guys might remember you spoke about at the last hearing that had gotten mowed down. So this is
I don't think it's been replaced yet. So I see on this that you have deleted and redlined wetland protection district section. Is there a second deletion that I'm not picking up?
Yeah, the stormwater management under chapter 133. We're going to take that off as well.
Okay, I don't. Which page is that?
I have it on my page 7.
You have to go away.
I see. Near the end, yeah. Okay. You just hadn't deleted it, redlined it yet.
No, I didn't. I missed it. Well, missed it, but also needed to confirm. So we'll delete that, and then we'll look at the sign and make sure that we actually need the waiver.
And I know one issue on the signage is that it identifies the street number clearly enough for the fire department. So I think, do we have a sign rendering in the plans? The fire department wanted to see one last time, I believe, or to have some guarantee that it was going to be identifiable, not only for their purposes. Maybe it was the police department actually that said they wanted people to be able to identify when people are looking for a number. They want it stated clearly on the sign. In other words.
I can certainly speak with Anthony about getting a rendering of the sign for the next meeting. And that actually reminds me of the other issue that we talked about, which is that we're going to delete the waiver for the street numbers since it's just one number. I've been working on a lot of subdivisions where street numbers become more important, but because this is already an identifiable address, we'll delete that waiver too.
Okay. Yeah. So, let's take a look at the waivers.
Okay.
Is there anything?
Can you see that?
I see a blank screen. It says,
all right, hang on
"Please consult."
Why is my? Hang on 1 second.
It was your screen, but there was nothing on it.
Hey, look, at least it's not my kitten again.
Yeah, that was you 6 months ago, wasn't it? Yes.
Could have been. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
This is also in the file, the copy we have.
Yeah, I'm better at writing these than I am talking about why we need them.
Okay.
So if Paul doesn't mind me putting him on the spot, I'm going to ask him. A lot of these are procedural and point back to the actual comprehensive permit themselves.
Well, we asked for specific, we asked for specific waivers to that you request specifically what you want waived, because anything that's not requested is not deemed waived after. So just be as thorough as you can as to what it is you're seeking, and you've done it.
So I mean, the way that we set this up is we cited the section, generally what it is, quoted some of the text, and then our next section is an explanation about what we're looking for.
Yep.
So the first one is basically that we are seeking a waiver of the compliance to comply with your basically your zoning bylaw. Because
so this section essentially requires all projects to comply with all provisions of the zoning bylaw, which obviously we are not going to be able to comply with because this is a 40B development that is requesting waivers. So this is a necessary waiver request.
Okay. All right. Patrick, have you gone through these yet or no?
No, I just received this. I mean, this one, this one is basically because they want the 60-unit multifamily, which I don't believe is allowed in this zone, and
Right.
they need it to construct the project.
I won't, you don't have to comment on every one tonight. I'm asking if you will review this and from your perspective, are these waivers necessary and appropriate? And that's what we, the members, should be doing, and Paul as well, as we go forward. I haven't dug into these yet, so I'm just reading through them, and open to suggestions as to how we attack these. Paul, have you identified any that are particular concern?
No, I haven't. But I think we would also, I need to make sure Judy Barrett has this too, just to make sure she weighs in, so we can do that after this meeting. But no, I thought, again, I didn't see anything in here that, with the wetlands waiver coming out of the stormwater, I think these are I think this hits the points they need.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, some of these waiver requests may not be strictly necessary.
Yeah.
The way that Chapter 40B works, an applicant isn't required to obtain specific waivers from other permitting requirements. It's all subsumed as part of the process. So if you've got a special permit requirement, if you've got, I'm looking at 175.15 non-conforming buildings and uses. That really wouldn't be applicable to this project, but as an applicant, you want to make sure you're listing everything that could potentially be considered, and then leave it up to the board as to whether to grant that waiver or to note that it's not technically required. But what I can do when we draft the decision for this is I can actually list these waivers and then give you a suggested determination as to whether or not they're strictly necessary. And if they're not necessary, we can simply note that they're not necessary because this is a 40B development, and therefore the board is not granting these waivers.
Well, I won't
puts it on the record that the board considered them and determined that they weren't necessary.
Okay, I won't limit how you present them. What we've done is we've attached something like this as the list of waivers as an exhibit incorporated. So it's helpful to have them spelled out like this.
Yep.
If you don't think you need them, but you want to bring them up, you can certainly do that for discussion. I get the fine point you're trying to make.
Yeah, it makes it helpful, after the process is complete and the applicant is going, to the building department or elsewhere for additional permitting, just so that there's no confusion later on as to whether or not everything that was necessary has been granted.
Okay. Well, maybe it sounds like we should, on our side, dig into these then and look them over specifically, and ask Mr. Brennan to as well, and Judy Barrett, for the next meeting, rather than sitting here and reading every one, line by line. We could do that if you want, but I don't know that is the best use of our time. Let me just for the moment skip and ask a question. What is the communication been with Water and Sewer Commission and hookups and fees and things of that sort? Because that became an issue on the last application, in terms of timing anyway.
Yeah, if I'm on the right project, I believe what I heard is that is Cameron still on?
I'm still here. Yep.
Were we trying to get a flow test with them?
No. So we have to present in front of them, and we were waiting to revise the plans because they wanted a revised set before. They pretty much want a finalized plan so that they know where the connections are and everything's going before we present in front of them.
Well, what is it that they actually approved, though?
The water connection and the sewer connection.
And the supply numbers themselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not asking for a waiver of fees?
No.
Okay. Okay, I would encourage you to, push that process along then. The coordinate.
Right, I think that what I was trying to recall is that they kind of want to be the last stop on the train. They want it to be final before you go in front of them. So I think that we'll be there in the next week.
Okay. All right. And yeah, pass along the new plan as quickly as you can, obviously, so that everyone, but Patrick especially can dig into them to identify if there are any issues there.
Yeah, and I can certainly update the waiver list tomorrow to delete the additional items and make sure that I take a look at the sign bylaw, just so that I have the most current. And I'll do the same thing. I'll add a couple more red, cross outs on it the way that I did on this one.
Okay.
It's really not a huge list. A lot of it is administrative.
Yeah.
So hopefully pretty straightforward.
Okay. Is there anything else we can accomplish tonight then, or are we looking to April 14th? Just get to the point.
Right. No, I unless the board or the public has questions for us, we're certainly happy to answer them. We've got a little bit of work to do over the next week to make the next meeting productive for everybody.
Okay. Jim, members, do you have questions or concerns that you want to voice at this point?
No.
I'm good right now.
Okay. And Lucas, Alan, okay.
Good.
All right. Let's try to lock down and dig in a little for April 14th. I'll ask now, record, is there anybody here from the members of the public who want to ask a question or voice a concern? We do like giving that opportunity at each of the 40B meetings. Speak up or unmute yourself, raise your hand. I don't see anybody trying to do so. Is it appropriate then for a motion to continue this till April 14th at say 7:30?
With with your indulgence, I have another hearing at 6:30 that night.
Oh, wow.
So I would love to be the first on the agenda, but if there's an opportunity to be a little bit later on the agenda, just because we have a lot to, so.
Nicole, do we know, or Paul, do we know what the agenda looks like? Well, we have the two, we have Tipping Place and Knollwood.
We will also have two new ones on. I know one for sure, and then I had one pending today that would probably end up on it as well. But I know for sure we have one new one.
Can you just tell them no?
If we can get that coveted 8 o'clock spot, that would be unbelievable.
No, we can certainly do that. I would just don't like to schedule it later than we have to start it, But sure, 8 o'clock. It sounds like we're going to have some work because the two applications that we didn't get to tonight involve some history. As you heard. So those are going to take some time. So sure. Is there a motion to continue till 8 p.m. on the 14th? Unless anybody else has any questions or wants to discuss what's next.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. And Patrick, are you able to join us on that night?
Yes, and the 8 o'clock works better for me as well because I have a 7 o'clock in another town. So
you'll have to zoom from town to town. Understood. And thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Without any further discussion, Mr. Bowie, how do you vote on the motion to continue to 8 o'clock on the 14th?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
Mr. Noel votes yes as well with his last breath. Thank you. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
please keep the
Thank you,
information
Mr.
coming.
Chairman.
Keep the information coming when you can get it to us so we can pass it along to our people as well. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay,
Chair, I need to go back to another meeting, so you all have a great evening.
thanks, Paul, for setting us up here and then abandoning us.
My pleasure.
Good luck. We'll talk in the interim.
Great.
Okay, I thought we had more to discuss with them tonight, but that's fine. Next then, Chair's discretion, I'm going to go back to the application for, get it right. The application concerning 0 Knollwood Street. We're back to that. You know what? Actually, the problem is, as Nicole explained, is we don't have a way of cleanly stopping the public meeting, going into exec session, and then restarting, because what do we say? We're going to restart at, 9:15 or 9:10. So we kind of have to do that last. So my mistake, let's not go back to 0 Knollwood. Let's go on with other business right now. There are 2 ways to do an executive session. We can vote. We have to do roll call votes to go in and out. We can vote to do an executive session and then return to public session in normal times, but these aren't normal times. So tonight I will suggest a vote to go to executive session, not to return to public session after. We have to keep minutes of the executive session and do minutes, for the secret record, confidential record. But as long as we declare up front that we're not coming back, that'll effectively end the meeting for tonight. So that's really the way we have to do it remotely without a better way. Got it? Am I talking too much in explaining this? Just
Negative.
put a sock in my mouth if I'm talking too much, because I did have extra tea today in anticipation of this. So bills and warrants. Do we have any bills and warrants, Nicole?
Nope, just a minute.
Okay. I sent out, Nicole had sent, and then I had edited and sent out 2 sets of minutes, one for January 6th, one for January 27. Which was it that, Alan, you were not at? Was it the 27th?
27.
Okay. So I could make that change, would make that change. Let's take the 6th first anyway. Take the time to go through them as you wish, or to offer a motion to approve the minutes for January 6th when you're ready. But Alan had looked at the 27th and realized that he was not there that night. So we're going to have to cross him out and dock his pay.
I did watch the meeting and do a Mullen form though, so I'm all up to speed.
But for the 6th, let's take those first.
Sure, I make a motion to approve the minutes for the January 6th, 2021.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on those? No. Okay. Alan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Noel votes yes as well. Lucas, do you have any changes to the minutes?
Nope.
Okay. I will get those signed into you, Nicole, in the next couple of days. Thank you. So for the 27th, I have to cross out Alan as being in attendance. Lucas, were you absent on the 27th?
I don't know which meeting I was absent. I was absent on one, and I still have to do the Mullen form. I haven't done it. Nicole's sent me 2 emails now, so.
But that's really only for if there's a continued matter, including the 40Bs. So I guess you got to do it for that purpose. So please.
But I'm not a voting member, so I'm wondering if that matters.
You're right. But
I guess I just don't matter anymore.
Yeah, you do matter. No, you do matter. You matter a lot, believe me. I would say it's smart to do them if we can do them, because you never know. Hopefully I'll
yeah, no, I agree.
I get hit by a bus tomorrow and then
Oh, boy.
you're all voting members. So I guess if you can, view the tapes when you're not around and do a Mullins form, that's advisable. And Nicole will just collect them in the file. As for a Mullins form, to vote minutes, sure, we can do that. I don't think that's the purpose, but I was going to ask the people who were here for the meeting. Of course, David's not here tonight, so let's continue. Let's just look through the 27th and with the change that Alan was not here. Is there any further changes from anybody or a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes on January 27th, 2020.
27, right?
Yeah, 27.
Yeah.
Second.
Alan seconded, though he wasn't here, but he watched the tape, so I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, no further changes then, except for the removing Alan. Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Booley, you've watched the movie, you've watched the tape. How do you vote?
No different than watching right now, yes.
Exactly. And Mr. Noel votes yes as well. Okay, that's it. I will get these minutes to you, Nicole, with that change to the 27th. So now, no other business, right, Nicole?
Correct.
Okay. So now we will go back to 00 Knollwood Street at 953.
Jared, so this is executive session, right?
Well, not yet. We shouldn't.
Not yet.
We shouldn't discuss this substantively. As I said before, there is the prior history. There are some confidential materials that we need to review. So now I have to declare as chair that there is a need for an executive session under Mass General Law. I think this is Chapter 30A, Section 21, to discuss not pending litigation, but confidential records that were previously made confidential at a previous executive session in, I think, 2008. Is there a motion to go to executive session under the bylaw for the purpose and reason declared by the chair, which is to review those confidential documents with the board not to return to open session? Is there such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. And for the record, we should note, Nicole, it's 8:54. Roll call vote. We will go into executive session and effectively end this meeting at the end of the executive session without returning to public session. It's confusing, I know, but that's the way it's supposed to be done. Mr. Tenori, how do you vote on the motion to go into executive session and not to return?
Yes.
Mr. Booley, how do you vote?
Yes.
For the record, Mr. Noel votes yes as well.